Rogue Trader just hit 2 years of birthday, so to celebrate, I'm going to be highlighting some bugs and absolutely trivializing and destroying the game using seg bugs to do this. Now, what bugs am I currently talking? Well, currently there are some bugs for Psychers where non-attacking powers don't increase veil degradations for sanctioned Psychers. It might apply to unsanctioned too, but they explode anyway. But the other one is that Psyker staff attacks count as melee attacks and melee strike burst nonetheless for the Psyker Pyromancy staffs, which means they can be dodged and parried, which means to make an actual effective caster you need weapon skill as well as ballistic skill. But how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to make ourselves a sanctioned Psyker Pyromancer, and we're going to start abusing some of this to do some absolutely hilarious things. Now, what I'm going to do, the reason I'm going warrior is all the warrior talents will apply to Psyker staff powers, like I said, because they count as a melee attack. So I'm going to be making a build to abuse the hell out of that. Now, in order to do this, I'm going to be focusing on agility because obviously we want to be able to go first as well as, dodge. I'm going to be focusing on weapon skill, and eventually I'm going to go into Arc Militant, and we're going to start pumping all of these things up, and of course using the new Shimmering Emulsion as well as other Psyker items to be able to really power through this. So these are the things that are going to matter the most. I am, as always, named this after my US Marine buddy Nathan. Don't ask me why I always do that, but I'm going to be showing off some absolutely naughty things with this. Coming into the early game, one of the first talents we're going to pick up is Desolation, because that will add agility damage to our Psyker staff powers. So if we look around what we can do here, we can either hit a group of enemies, or we can still use the melee, and we will also get Desolation to those melee hits. We can use that to sort of pick and choose where we're going to take people out, and for the tutorial fight, we're not going to be wanting to try and tank the boss, because we're going to be an agility-based warrior, whereas Abelard himself is going to be the melee-based one. But this means we're also going to have access to a staff attack as well as a charge attack, so we're probably going to want to be using 2 sets of weapons, one for our melees and one for our ranges. Now, because we are doing this on unfair, one of the things that you should note is when you come up against here, you're going to want to take out these enemies as quickly as possible, and we are going dogmatic path, so we're going to be taking every opportunity we can to get as many dogmatic points as possible, and then from there we're going to start being able to abuse that, because the dogmatic 4 ability will allow our Psyker staff powers to ignore enemy armor, so it will greatly enhance our damage. We're going to be using Idra just in this little early encounter here, but we will soon move her out, because obviously being an unsanctioned Psyker, she can explode and die, which can often cost us encounters, and we don't want to do that. As always, Abelard is going to be tanking up this Chaos Spawn here, so most of this combat is actually going to be kind of starting off more as a little bit of a melee, because we start off with Psi rating 0 rather than Psi rating 1, so both our staff and our powers are going to be a little bit weak. But with Abelard as the distraction to get absolutely bullied by the Chaos Spawn, even on unfair, as you can see here, he's not going to take too much trouble. And because we have those 2 little attacks, as you can see here, we can either use Lightning Staff, which, like I said, will do a little bit less and a little bit more, but the staff itself, as you can see, it gets Desolation from our agility applying, so just to prove off. And because we went Fortress World, we got 2 attacks because we managed to kill some people, so you get a lot of mileage out of this, and the rest of this counter is just going to be circling around the Chaos Spawn and bullying him with our ranged characters and trying to do as much damage as we can. A good chance of that is actually going to come from Argenta, because she can do quite a bit of damage and she can build up some nice momentum for us. That's if we don't get dodged, my goodness. You can also go into Muzzle Velocity or Point Blank for her for this encounter, depending on which you want to do. But she's going to be good with both of them. You're just going to want to make sure you don't accidentally start blasting Abelard. And you're going to be wanting to use Idra to analyze and then expose the boss to lower his armor, which will allow you to do a little bit of damage. And if you've given her one of the scrap auto guns, you can actually use Idra to safely get in range damage, as you'll see here. So this is going to be sort of your early step. And we're going to jump into the next step and talk about some of the key items that you're going to want to pick up. But right before we disappear to talk about what we get next, we can't just leave without having some glory. So we can use a sword and an axe to get in on here because, like I said, our range powers are going to give the Chaos Spawn opportunities to possibly get attacks, and we're just going to kind of want to be able to get in there. For anyone curious on the sort of angling you're going to want to have a straight line on the Chaos Spawn to try and get your ranged attacks in, and the damage, unless you have muzzle velocity, can be a little bit low. As you can see here, I accidentally had forgotten to use the Allies Exposed for that round, but with that then on, you'll notice we'll start trying to get some other damage on the other allies. And Abelard, yeah, he should be absolutely fine to tank through this, so don't worry too much about that. And because we are quite a good melee character, the reason we've got the sword on here is, well, we're going to want to be able to dodge and parry the boss. So yeah, this is going to be something that's going to carry you through this battle here, and you're just going to end up circling the boss, as you can see here, and then just bullying him and doing some damage, because obviously the powers are going to be a little bit weak here. And I have point blank on this one, not muzzle velocity, so as you can see, most of my damage is actually going to come from my shotguns here for Argenta.
My prescience has failed me. Doubt is
By heading over to your Act 5 first to get Cassia, we can get an item called the Shimmering Emulsion from one of the puzzles there. This will give us +1 psi rating. We're going to want to use this on our Pyromancer. So with Psycho Minoris, we'll actually have 2 psi rating pretty early, and by the end of Act 1 with Psycho Majoris, we'll have 3 psi rating. Now this on Unfair is one of the most difficult encounters, because you sort of have to bum rush something called the Red Bull Agitator, because he can give +10 base damage to all the enemies. So you either need to wipe out the swarms, as I'm doing here, or you need to focus everything you've got into killing that agitator. I've gone for the approach of trying to wipe out the swarm, but to each their own for how you decide to go for this. But Argenta of Litany of Hatred, yeah, she's going to do some really big damage, and we're going to use that to show that that buff also actually applies to our Pyromancer here. So Idra for this encounter, I normally pop her at the side to try and get some damage on this Rebel Agitator. Unfortunately, on Unfair, because of how high his health is, you couldn't take him out of a power, and the Long Lads at her current side rating is actually going to do more. So it's best to just go with that just to get some damage out on him.
Was that you? Or
And I was risking using a power there. She could have exploded and summoned a Daemon there. Now, I have left Argenta in the open, which is not the best thing to do if you don't want to be catching injuries and traumas on this difficulty. Now, the initiative is going to be a bit RNG for how useful it's going to be, and because the Agitator went first, everything's going to really hurt. Kibella I'm going to use as a bit of a backup here, just to pick off some of those enemies to assist our Argenta here. Now, he was able to dodge and parry, but by using Blood Oath we can ignore that. So I'm going to use her Blood Assassin abilities here, and then a Blade Dance to get some good damage. Nice, fantastic follow-up with that crit there. And we're getting in to bully this Agitator. Now, I'm going to be using Cassia to focus her buffs onto my Pyromancer, and we can use our staff to, like I said, get all the abilities, but if they're a little bit further away, we're going to probably want to use the Pyromancer powers not to kill our own allies. So with Shimmering Emulsion, if you notice here, we've managed to get up to about 35 by the time we got to Rykad, and but we're getting +6 base damage there coming in from Litany of Hatred, which is pretty nice.
Nothing I can't do.
And because we gave an extra turn, we can get on that Endure pretty early. Because of the way stat blocking works, even though we've got pretty high rolls, we went after everyone else. Your Ignite is going to be very useful for just catching some enemies, and you can even use Charge in itself to sort of reposition yourself. And you want to be trying to use your Lightning Staff, but sometimes you're not going to get the best angles like I have done here. So rather than accidentally blasting allies, I'm going to just pick off key targets with Ignite, and then in later encounters we'll get better opportunities to be using that Lightning. Now, this second encounter here is actually where the Pyromancy staff is on the right just below. So we're going to be looking for what we can really be doing in this encounter to obviously help out. One of the good things here about using Bring It Down to get a kill is we can start the ball rolling on our enough bullets for everyone. One of the reasons we're going to be wanting to do that is going to be so we can get free extra attacks, because the more attacks we can do, the more we can actually output. So the other thing that you can do here is you can use Cassia to very aggressively push and stun enemies with Lidless Stare, which is an absolutely fantastic ability that she has access to. So most of these enemies get stunned, and now is actually time for our Pyromancer, who's finally going to get to show off his lightning ability.
Suits my purposes.
As we can see, good damage coming out all around there, so some 18s and stuff, and we can then even charge in and use our melee that we've set up to obviously pick some of people. And if we have a look at those damages, as we can see, we've got that base Desolation coming in here, and we're going to be getting even more talent speed, doing even more with that. On future turns, obviously, now that we have Cassia and we have Argenta, we've got 2 more ways to buff ourselves up. So Litany of Hatred coming in from Argenta, and then we are going to have those buffs from Cassia, and those extra turns to stack and start using our Fortress World stuff. Gibella's going to be someone who's going to be very good for supporting what we're going to be doing here, and she's a pretty good backup. Not someone you have to use in a party, but Blade Dancer is undeniably OP. But as you saw there, sometimes you get a few death from above glitches where the ability just doesn't work because I changed map transition, so it just kind of didn't do anything. But this is going to be a very strong team who are all going to be able to support each other. As soon as I get Pascal, I tend to swap Idra out for him. And then this is kind of the team that's going to be for the rest of the game. And Kibella eventually will probably get swapped out for Ulfa, just because I like Ulfa. Right, as we come around to round 2, I was not quite paying attention. I accidentally wiped out one of my own allies, but we still got that Never Stop Shooting come in to get a free attack, and now we can actually use another Starface cast or another Psycho Power. So I'm going to use this to try and set this guy on fire to help take him out, so when it comes back around to his turn, he won't get to go. And because we got to make him the melee attack, we did a ranged attack, and then we get a charge. So technically, we just had 3 attacks because of the Fortress World stuff going, because Fortress World isn't exclusively to range. So that burn went off, so we're doing some good things here. We've essentially secured this combat now, and it's just playing a little bit of finish off so we can then go get the last item we need from this Act 1 area, which is going to be the actual Pyromancy staff itself. I did accidentally just a second ago try to move Cassia again. She was threatened, so she actually got killed by an enemy because I was trying to run around with her. That was a whoopsie daisy.
As the Emperor commands, I act. Cover me. Anything else? Be gone.
Yeah, some of these enemies you're going to want to focus more, but you will also benefit from the Biomancy buffs as long as you have Idra, because yeah, your strength-based talents and coming in from your warrior are going to apply as whilst they're up. So now that we've cleared this encounter, like I said, you're going to want to go down to the right here to get the actual Pyromancy staff. Once you have it, you're going to be able to choose if you want to have double staff or you're going to keep your melee backups. It's up to you for however you want to play it, but let's go quickly show off what this thing can do. So I'm going to stand back a little bit further, but you can see there's a very big radius we get here of these 3 cells by 3 cells like a normal burst, but this will count as a melee burst attack. So you see a good range of from 8 to 17 damage here, and 7 shots were fired, so that's potentially quite some good damage. Joint Analysis will also apply from Pascal. Litany of Hatred can stack on top of that, so there's going to be a lot of ways that we can boost damage on here. So for Act 1 this is going to be pretty strong, but we're also going to go off and get ourselves Reckless Fury and Reckless Strike, because that will actually double our damage basically, because you'll be seeing those benefits come in. So I'm going to skip on ahead, and we're going to show a later encounter, but you'll find yourselves going through quite easily, and as long as you treat the Pyro Staff as a burst fire weapon, you can have a melee secondary, or you can have the Lightning Staff secondary, and the Lightning Staff will actually count as multiple single attacks as it pops out those extra hits, so it's going to be up to you for what you're going to be doing with that.
Fortunate turn of fate.
So, looking at a slightly later battle here, this is going to be towards the end of Act 1 as you're going back to Aurora and the Starport. Now, as I said before, you can be using knights to pick off some people or set some fire, and you can be applying Reckless Strike to your staff. So, at the moment, I've just given an extra turn over here from Cassia, and I'm going to set up a Reckless Strike for my next attack, which will carry over to my main turn, as well as Endure, just so I've got some defenses up. This is one of the advantages of Bring It Down. Sometimes you won't always be in the best spot to use it, but if you are, you can obviously get some more mileage out of it. Just going to quickly throw off an attack with Cassia, and then I'm going to move up my Pyromancer to show you what we're doing with some of these damaging abilities. Ripper Rebel was feeling a bit brave. So, as I was saying, I'm going to use this opportunity to move in and show you what another Pyrostaff Blast will do, and we've got our Reckless Strike set up for this one as well. Unfortunately, that cutscene played during my attack and cut it short, so that's a bit annoying because it actually cut some of my blasts here. But I can still charge in, and I can either hit with the melee of the staff, or if you've got secondary melee, you can do it that way. I will set up for another attack, and we'll come back around and show a little bit more. So as always, these sniper enemies are very annoying. We're in turn 2 at the moment. So I'm going to activate Reckless Strike, and we shouldn't have a cutscene cut us short this time. And we're going to use the Inferno ability. And as you can see, that's some pretty high damage for Act 1. So that's a 7-shot burst with them each doing between, what was that, 36 and 40? So yeah, we've got our Purging Fire coming in, we've got Desolation, we've got Reckless Strike. So there is a lot being applied here. So you can already see how naughty this is already. So for our tier 2, we're going to be doing something very different. We're not going to be going into Overseer, we're actually going to be going into Arc Militant, and one of the reasons we're going to be doing that is because of broad expertise to be able to build up our ballistic skill. But just showing in the Cinder encounter how much damage we're already doing at the start of Act 2, we are doing about 56 per just our lightning staff, and sometimes we can do a little bit more or less on that. This is from a setup that I showed on stream recently where you can one-turn the Cinder encounter thanks to the red crystal staff and using the other abilities here. Now, if I probably wanted to kill Cinder, I probably should have been spamming off some of my other attacks. But as you can see, we're getting a lot of stuff coming in. Reckless Strikes applying to staff attacks as well as our Desolation. So someone like Cinder is going to struggle to take us out. He will be able to run in here, probably be able to try and get Cassia. Get bopped around by Abelard, and he can still do some pretty good damage to us. But as I was saying, yeah, I probably would have done better if I just spammed Ignite on him to kill him that way. I just wanted to show off what some of those lightning attacks looked like when we were getting our boost coming in. The AP usage probably would have done it a little bit better. But we're going to want to pick up some other items here in Act 2, especially as soon as we get to Footfall. The Inertia Boots is going to be something that is going to be pretty useful for us because it is something that we can use to generate MP and kill. And our Daring Breach will apply to our staff attacks because they count as melee, and we'll be able to keep building up movement that way. Now, Act 2 is going to be pretty easy for you, so I'm going to do a big jump here. You're going to eventually want to get to the Psycho's Breastplate, the Hand of Offense, and the Warp Surge Brooch. 2 of those items are going to be available along with the dog tags in Act 2, and the items like the Eyes of Joyce are going to come in Act 4. Now, I still had a save where I had this in Act 3, so I am being a little bit naughty and using earlier, but you won't be able to use the Eyes of Joyce yourself. However, I just wanted to show what you're going to be able to start doing and what sort of numbers you're going to be starting to pump out even in Act 3. This is really a you're trapped in here with me moment, because when you get here the first time on most normal builds, this is quite scary to do, and you can find yourselves taking a lot of damage. However, with all the power that this warrior pyromancer has, you're actually going to find this trip through Kimura to be much easier than your previous trips, and you'll even find that you'll be able to take out the bite gains pretty much no problems, especially if you've gone the dogmatic path. So if you've gone to dogmatic 4, you can really ignore enemy armor, and you can be doing a lot here. So if I use Reckless Strike to force myself a crit here and use my Inferno ability, you'll be seeing some of the sort of damage that we're going to be pumping out already. And yeah, you're going to be pumping out a lot of momentum as well, especially when you take upgrades like Steel Mind. So coming back around, and you can even use your Arc Militant abilities like Devastating Attack to apply here and take advantage of the extra attack economy coming in from Wildfire. And by swapping between Psycho Staff powers, regular powers, and even melee, you can keep building up versatility, because Psycho Staff powers count as a melee, regular Psycho powers will build up versatility of them. So you're going to be seeing yourself do some naughty things. So skipping later into this same encounter, this is a multi-phase encounter where as enemies come through, it will keep resetting. So you'll be able to hang on to a lot of your buffs, and sometimes they'll just get straight up reset. So coming onto here, you'll find that you'll actually one-shot most rounds because your damage is just going to be absolutely exquisite. You can even take advantage of items like Crimson Haze to really pump that damage, where a lot of times you won't even see the kind of damage you're doing. You'll just hear a sort of death rattle and these enemies will be down. As with the nature of these multi-round encounters, you'll see that you'll be building up a lot of buffs as you go between the rounds, as well as getting your abilities reset. So if I have a look at the stats coming in here from the Cassia buffs that we've received, they're pretty high. And like I said, being able to stack the Arc Militant abilities on top of here, yeah, these Pyro Staff abilities, absolutely destroying enemies, and I even find my computer lags a little bit with how much damage we're doing in some of these. Unfortunately, there's not much I can do unless I want to buy a £3,000 computer, but yeah, these fire attacks are goddamn impressive, wouldn't you say? I really should be switching between my 2 AP attack, my 1 AP attack, but you can see sort of all these damage riders coming in here, as well as all of your colony talents and stuff that you just picked up adventuring. Stuff like Hand of Offense and Psychic Barrage are also going to be applying here, so we're putting to use both ballistic skill and weapon skill, and you can even have a nice secondary weapon like a hammer, because we're still a melee boy at the end of the day. But let's try to show how badly this breaks this game, and I'm going to see if I can take on Urlon Daybreak as a one-turn solo, naturally using just some basic officer buffs to get myself going. Now, if you check any of my companion build videos, you'll understand the sort of buff loop I'm doing here to get Finest Hour on turn 1, but it involves Inquisitor's Tenon and Cassia buffs. But with a Finest Hour passed over to my Rogue Trader and using the Inertia Boot so my melee attacks can give me MPs before I get to Daring Breach, and the fact that I'm also using Reckless Strike, we're going to be doing a lot. So even my basic melees are coming in here at 400 damage, and I've not really built for the melee itself. It's just because we're taking melee talents, you're going to see it pump up anyway. But when we actually then take in the staff attacks, 2 Chaos Marines down, son. We can still obviously use Charge, Impetus and Desolation. I haven't really built for that, but this is just something to hack my way through. And I've saved the big attack for Urlon and Voitgear himself. So Devastating Attack is what we want to use here. Reckless Strike, Wildfire to take away that. And because of Warp Surge Brooch, we pretty much have unlimited attack economy anyway. Woof. 1700 damage is what we're building up here with all of my damage talents. If you want to see the full build, do look at the spreadsheet below, because as always I do a full build spreadsheet where I explain how to do things like this, and you'll be able to follow that through to see everything we're doing here. But we're playing a ranged caster here. I hadn't even put on all the items. There are consumables like Crimson Haze that we can apply here. Daring Breach does apply to our damage. I didn't need to use it just yet, but I just wanted to show you off that yes, this is stacking. So that melee's already gone up to like 600, and as you can see, these fireball casts are going to absolutely obliterate everything in my pass, coming up to 700 damage, and I'm firing, I believe, 11 of them currently, and you've still got access to Molten Beam, which is going to be doing a lot as well. Now, here comes in one of the big bosses of the game, so I'm sorry for people who maybe didn't want spoilers, but you're about to see some exquisite blasts coming in here, and I'm pretty sure I can take this boss out in a single Pyromancer blast. So we're going to get myself set up here. Here's what my stats are currently looking like with buffs. Don't worry about those items there. I was testing some other builds before I got here, so I was using Toybot spawn items. However, let's see how the Muscle Mage does on a Psycho Staff shot to the edge of Daybreak. Let's just line this up so we get ourselves a very nice angle here. And let's see what we do. Bing, bang, boom, you're done. Woof. How much damage did that actually pull in here? 2,800. So yes, it took up 11 shots, and it very quickly built up from about 700 damage to 2,800 damage. Not much is going to survive this here. Obviously, this build is absolutely broken. Happy birthday, Rogue Trader. I hope you enjoyed seeing this, developers. And for everyone else who stopped by, do check out the spreadsheet. Subscribe, like more. And we got some Dark Heresy stuff coming soon and eventually. But that's all for now.